Morning.
Our invocation this morning will be led by Sylvia.
Morning, fellow Toastmasters. We are gathered today with attention to a common goal: to be better listeners, be a better speaker, and also to support each other. Albert Einstein said, learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. Maybe we learn from yesterday's mistakes and challenges. Today, may we live in the moment, taking joy in our meeting. And may we increase in hope for our speeches of tomorrow through the helpful support and learning that we received this morning. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, I'll ask everybody to mute their mics for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Sylvia, for the invocation. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and good morning, Jim. Jim, so
Morning.
wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Are there any announcements from the floor? Steve, is the Star Show still on March 20th?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right, 7 p.m., right?
Yeah, well, it'll be at least, oh, wait a minute, time change. Probably closer to 8 time. It gets dark by then.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Eric, I got, if I could say
Yep,
something.
go
We
ahead.
met with the school DECA program yesterday, and it was a lot of fun. It was interesting. They're still struggling with making time on their speeches. We had one speaker that actually went over, but the other two had difficulty making time. They have something interesting coming up on the third week of this month. Because they're a business-oriented class, they're doing an elevator pitch. Each student, that's what the meeting is going to consist of, is each student in the class is going to have 1 minute to pitch their whatever. There are certain categories that they can select from, but they've got 1 minute to do it. Then these are going to be taped and sent out to be judged. So that's kind of cool. Looking forward to that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom, for the update. Are there any other announcements? All right, well, if there's any announcements, we'll save it for last. Without any further delay, I'll turn things over to our Toastmaster of the day, Thomas HELDWEIN.
Oh, well. There we go. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I get to be Toastmaster this morning. I was looking forward to it. And in addition to trying to go with a little bit of a theme of a talk show, I wanted to actually bring you with me down my journey. So I started off on the computer typing, looking for a subject. Well, there's these websites with 300 subjects for Toastmaster meetings. So I went down one of those rabbit holes. And it was the content of speeches. And the first 3 or 4 articles I opened doing my research were all negative. So with that negative thought in mind, come with me on the journey today. We're going to go into roles and what roles there are in Toastmasters in a meeting. But first, I'd like to welcome our guest, Jim. Jim is in a group with Larry and I believe Marty. Thank you for coming today, Jim. Welcome everybody else. Thank you for being awake. The first thing we always do is get our word of the day. That would be our word master, who gives us a new vocabulary word. So go ahead, Mr. Thornton.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And thank you for your impeccable timing of waiting till I had just taken a bite of my Pop-Tart to introduce me. Today's word, courtesy of Roget's Thesaurus, is a synonym of evaluate. It is appraise, A-P-P-R-A-I-S-E. I'm posting it here in the comments. Other forms of the word are appraisal or appraised. I'm sure Tracy uses this every day in her job, but we could use it a little bit more. It's a little bit more colorful than evaluate. It means to estimate the monetary value of, but it also means to estimate the nature, quality, or importance of something. Try to use appraise. I'll be keeping track of everyone throughout the meeting, and especially the table topics contestants who must use it to qualify for the competition. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. The next role is going to be the great and awesome Master. This is almost a role that's expanded in our club. And to explain that is our Master Day, Anne Marie. Oh, you're muted, Anne.
Good morning, Tom, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I love your energy, Tom. Fantastic. I'll have to get one of those swivel chairs. I will be appraising your ums, ahs, and filler words and then reporting at the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Thank you. To go down that critical role, a lot of people feel that they don't like to be criticized on the number of odds that they have. And it's embarrassing. And it's one of the reasons I saw in one of the articles that someone left Toastmasters because they did not like being criticized. But you know what? We're here to technically build ourselves. So to technically build ourselves in a language that we work in, English, we have a grammarian who I think is going to do an outstanding job today due to his 60 to 80,000 word vocabulary. Samir, please give your role as what you're going to be doing today as grammarian.
Mr. Toastmaster, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know how large my lexicon is, but there are many words in it for sure. As a grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all the speakers, listening carefully to their language usage, and I'll take note of any improper grammar usage, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Samir. Well, those are two appraisers that are going to be appraising different parts of the day. And we're going to be using the word of the day, appraising, as much as we can, even 3 times in a sentence. The next one role is not an appraiser. They are actually going to give us a quote. Mike Licata from Studio B is going to be giving us a quote for the day. Mike, please give us your quote.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. I have a couple of quotes to do with appraising. The first one is, to assess the quality of thoughts of people, don't listen to their words, but watch their actions. And that's from Amit Kalantri. The other one is, many options are not transparent. They need to be explored and evaluated with care. What you see is not always what you get. And that was from Grant Howard. And my last one this morning, evaluating people is quite difficult. In order to properly evaluate a man, we should have a chance to observe his behavior when he has nothing and when he has everything. That's from Geraldo Bamovac. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. And now for kind of a commercial break, we're going to be going to our jester. Our jester today is Steve Smith. Steve Smith, please entertain. Now to you.
Thank you. I was hard pressed to find anything really relevant to today's theme for my little bit here today, but I do have a list of things to ponder, or as the late George Carlin would have said, things to make you go, Isn't it a bit unnerving that doctors call what they do a practice? Where do forest rangers go to get away from it all? If a turtle doesn't have a shell, is he homeless or naked? Oh, and thank you, Lynn, for this. It fits right in. Is there another word for synonym? And finally, is it true that cannibals don't eat clowns because they think they taste funny? Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Well, our next role is Beth Banks. Now, Beth is the mother of one of our longtime members, and she has come in and done an outstanding job during her initial time here and is basically fit right in. Beth is going to have the role of timer today, and that's important because we want to not go too long and not to be too concise with our speeches and what we do. So with that in mind, she's going to explain her role. Over to Beth.
Thank you, Thomas. My role as timer is to make sure that we do stay on task. For table topics, we have between 1.5 and 2.5 minutes with a 15-second buffer. So we will be doing the green and yellow and red backgrounds when we get to those points. For speeches, there are 30-second buffer, and most of the speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. The evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. So again, I'll do the background. I don't know why it's sparkling.
It's because you don't have a green screen.
But I'm glad I did this much for my low technology skills. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Beth. Actually, it looks really cool because it's almost like Hellfire-ish. So that's what you are. When you see red, you got to get out of there. And speaking of technology, glitches in technology, we have a very important role that today is being held by the master himself of technology, the one, the only, Larry McKenzie. Larry McKenzie, please.
McLion, that's me. Oh, by the way, I will be watching you today. I'm looking into each one of your screens because I am your tech master. Because today I have an opportunity to watch all of you on my other computer. So therefore, I'm not only in speaker view here, I am also in Studio B on this side, watching each and every one of you. And I will report back later in the meeting in regards to your use of technology, microphones, backgrounds, and anything else that I think that would be pertinent to help our cause towards technology. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you, Larry. The last role that I'm going to introduce this morning for the technical roles for the meeting is our quiz master. This is semi-unique to Lockport, AM Lockport. We have someone who quizzes us at the end of the meeting to see whether or not we were paying attention. And giving up his role, a little bit of his role, is kind of my fault. But what we're going to do is turn it over to Phil Russell. Phil Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My job is to appraise your memory. So put on your thinking caps. And this I want you to remember. I am Toastmaster next week. And my theme is next Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day. So remember everything people say, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Phil. Oh, I can't wait to put on my little green hat and put on my little green jacket and go around looking, following rainbows for pots of gold and drinking a lot of beer. It's going to be fun. One of the roles that, because of the way our itinerary is printed out, is often skipped at this point is our general evaluator, right? But our general evaluator today is Jill Rowing, and I'm going to go ahead and let her know that I'm going to be on my best behavior that I know how to do and try and fulfill every part of my role. What else is included in your role today, Jill?
In addition to evaluating you, Mr. Toastmaster, and your workup ahead of time and in through the meeting, I also will be evaluating the evaluators. And that is what my job is to be. I will be reporting near the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster Thomas.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much. Well, my role, as I said, as Toastmaster is to just run the meeting. But one of the things that you get to do is you get to set a theme. And as I said before, our theme today, or I wanted to talk about, was content and the role and the little tiny path that I followed. Well, these critical people said, oh, everything is just technical and all the evaluations just make you feel bad. You said, oh, too many times. You didn't get the proper appraisals and use the word of the day enough. You had poor language skills. You dropped your G's at the ends of words. I just didn't, and I wrote a beautiful speech and I was mad, so I just left. Well, all the paths start with the technical. How to be an evaluator, how to be a mentor, how to evaluate a speech, how you're going to be evaluated. So then I had an inspiration though. What is the most memorable and awesome speech almost every single person gives? The icebreaker. Why? You're not evaluated on any of the technical aspects. There's no time. There's no talking about us. There's no grammarian checks. It's just you talking. And you get to do it in whatever format and for however long you want. I love that. Now, this morning, I misplaced my glasses. So I can't read the text without doing this. So if you see in your little monitor that I'm like this, it's because I'm trying to read the text so that I can keep up with everything that's going on there, that I see it going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. So I do want to say that all this negativity brought me to the icebreaker. But then I said, you know what? Every speech has different subjects. You could be talking about nitro burning funny cars. You could be giving a personal story for a wedding toast. You could be doing a lot of different things. So how do you evaluate it? This person came up with this article the same way people come into my office at work. Problem, gripe, problem, mad. And I always ask for a solution. Blah, blah, blah. Context, question. And so I had to question myself here. Well, this person who's criticizing gives no solution. So if they don't give a solution, how in the world are we going to move on? More of that after our next part of our show is going to be table topics. Table topics is where we get to do impromptu speaking, come up with things off the cuff. And today's table topics, I'm sure, is going to be interesting and will be appraised by both the timer and Wordmaster to make sure they do their parts so that no one forgets. You need to use the word of the day and you need to be within time. Timer, real quick, go ahead and give us the time for the table topics that you're going to be using.
The times for table topics are 1.5 minutes to 2.5 minutes with a 15-second buffer.
Thank you, Beth. Now, one of my favorite members who always has wonderful stories, from dropping a plate that was worth a lot of money to getting lost. Mr. MUHKLES. MUHKLES, please take over as Table Topics Master.
Good morning. I would like everybody to unmute for at least a few seconds and want to get the energy up. Please, say as loud as you can. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's much better. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's going down. Let's try third time.
Dog start.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
Guten Morgen.
I could like to see more energy with hand gestures and everything. So as everybody speaks, we should give very strong positive feedback. Evaluation being the theme. Evaluation can also be called as feedback. And I think Toastmasters has the best approach. It's called the sandwich approach. You know, you give some positives, you give some improvement, and also more positive. How many of you are afraid of evaluation or appraiser? I was, and I am. After 20 years, I'm still a little bit of, touchy on evaluation, especially getting it. Giving it is not, because I don't listen very well. So I think I'm not doing as good a job. So I know that. But when I'm speaking, I really want good evaluation for improvement. I think we have many members of the club who are great evaluators. So I'll have 3 questions, and I'll ask for first volunteers, those who don't have a role. Otherwise, I will select a volunteer, and as timing and use of word of the day has already been shared. So who would be like to be the first volunteer? Or do you want the question first? Do I have any hand on volunteer? Yeah, I see. Carol, you already spoke on something. So someone else? Tracy, you're selected.
Carol didn't speak. And how about Jim? Sorry for the feedback.
Definitely. Jim is on my list, short list. So Tracy, regarding evaluation, appraisal, feedback, what is your first evaluation of a Toastmaster speech that made you feel? Share your experience, what you felt, and what was positive about it, and any improvement that was given as suggestions. Tracy Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Can somebody remind me what the word of the day is?
Appraise.
Appraise. Well, that will be easy. As an appraiser, I can tell you my first speech was way back, probably when I was in college. My dad wanted me to join Toastmasters because I had to give my thesis speech. And I've given the story many times where my speech was horrible. I stood up, my knees were actually shaking. And I couldn't eat my breakfast. Jackie Kenny asked the waitress at Friendly's to go warm it up again because I wasn't eating. Dave Licata was my evaluator, and he was wonderful. He just went on and gushed over my horrible speech, but told me everything that I did right. And I have no idea what I did right because I went home, I was still nervous afterwards. And I remember on my way home, having to pull over on Pine Street, so nervous, I actually had to vomit just to get all of that energy out of me. But Dave's evaluation at the time, it does pump you up. And my speech was about Russell Sage College. It was about retail at the time and what was going on in retail. It was in the process of going to be computerized. And inventory was being kept track of computers. That's how old I am. But evaluations are a wonderful way to pump people up, let them gain that confidence that I so badly needed at the time. And his appraisal of my speech, well, it wasn't actually truthful. It was wonderful and really helped me. And when I gave my thesis in college, I was able to use that and say, oh, you know, I can do this. I can do this. And I graduated, so everything was good. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
You're on mute.
Marcellus, unmute yourself.
Moklas, you're muted.
So going back to energy for the speakers is so important in a Toastmasters club. We must provide a lot of energy, even if it's first time or experience. Toastmaster spirit actually exudes energy. It's supposed to inspire, it's supposed to motivate, it's supposed to encourage. So my next question is going to be for Jim Wilkerson, because you're suggested by many, even though you are in my short list anyway. Give us your experience of evaluation. You can pick a side when you are evaluated or you are giving an evaluation. So share your experience of evaluation, Jim Wilkerson. Let's give him energy.
Good morning, everyone. When I started in Toastmasters many years ago, I was afraid of being appraised. I not only had the appraisal from everybody in Toastmasters, and I tried to give energy at 7:30 in the morning. I'm not always up at this hour. I had to set my alarm for this. I not only had to be appraised by everybody in Toastmasters, but when I got home, I had the master of appraisals, Marilyn. And that one, on the way home, I'm thinking, what is she going to tell me? What am I going to do? But it always ended up on a personal note. And she told me always what a good job I did, as did everybody in Toastmasters. Now, when somebody gives appraisal, they're not only supposed to tell you what you've done wrong, but also ways to correct what you've done wrong, and do it in a way that you don't feel upset or like somebody is yelling at you, because then you take a person and then they may not come back. Because I always know that when I get appraised, I know it's everybody telling me from their heart, and not so much as just to tell you what you did wrong just to get it out for the day. But I've gone through many appraisals, and I remember way back, I think I went to an evaluation class at Damon College, I believe, and that helped me, and I watch every week, and I hope to join back now. Mr. Toastmaster.
Appraisals are more common word. It doesn't exactly say what evaluation is to be in our clubs. One of the Toastmasters trick or suggestion or guidance is to always use what kind of approach? Any answer? What kind of approach Toastmasters recommend?
Sandwich.
Sandwich approach. What is the sandwich approach? Not only for Toastmasters, if you use it in your personal life or professional life, you get much better result. So I'm going to ask our VP of Education, Kate or Banks, give us a short description of the sandwich approach and how do you recommend and if you do use in your personal life.
Didn't Carol volunteer?
You don't have a role, am I right? Kate, you don't have a role, right?
Okay, certainly. Carol, if you'd like to jump in, maybe we can table topics. I didn't hear you speak earlier. The sandwich approach is fantastic. We give positives, suggestions, and positives again, or commendations, recommendations, and commendations again. And it's a great way to keep positive about the positive reinforcement, the positive section. When I was a history teacher, a high school history teacher, I would teach my students the same approach in writing because you have an introduction, you have the body, and then you have the conclusion, the same in your speeches. And the sandwich approach, I used a demonstration, even though they were high schoolers, they loved, as all of us are, kids at heart. The stuffed hamburger I had that opened up, it was like a Velcro hamburger toy that I found. I think it might have been a dog toy, I'm not sure, but it literally had a bun and different layers of stuffed burger, cheese, lettuce, tomato, and then bun, and it could all come apart and they could stack it and show how having a good meaty sandwich is helpful. I think we could improve on that in our appraisals of each other. We could give more meat, give more suggestions. We don't want to sugarcoat our evaluations. Like Jim, Marilyn was my first evaluator and I was petrified. And it wasn't on the drive home. I can't only imagine that. But she was so sweet and I thought, wait a minute, I thought we were here to improve. She doesn't have to be that nice. But then as time goes on, of course, we assist each other further and we can assess and appraise each other too, who can or wants more suggestions, more of the meat of the sandwich, or if you're a vegetarian, all the veggies of your sandwich. Thank you very much, Mr. Table Topics. Maybe Carol can share something at the end.
Yeah, Carol, you're welcome to join in to close.
There's plenty of time. There's another couple of minutes.
Yeah, we still have 2-3 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was reminded when Kate mentioned when she was a history teacher of a time when my 10th grade history teacher was appraising my work. And I usually did very well. And I can't really remember too many negative things she said, but I'm sure that teachers over the years, when I think back, they did use the sandwich approach. They maybe pointed out that you weren't doing well, but this particular history teacher told me that my penmanship was very good. I know we had strict cursive learning when I went to school. And she told me that on the Regents, of course, I had to know the material, but she said she was just very impressed that my penmanship was such that my answers at least would be very easy to read. And I know when I wasn't doing well at all in the higher math, I had a teacher that encouraged me, and he did toward the end bring me in early in the morning so that I could learn it. And unfortunately, that particular teacher moved away, and the next math teacher I had was not so accommodating, and that course luckily was just a half a year, and I had to retake it, but I did pass it then. And I just wanted to say, when we bought our home, we walked through it to kind of appraise it, and there was a rug underneath the kitchen table. And when we came back after purchasing it, that rug was gone. And guess what? There was no linoleum underneath the table that was worn off. So if you're appraising particularly a house, really take a good look at it. Mr. Table Topics.
You're muted still.
Thomas, I think that's back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Melissa had a technical difficulty. What we're going to do is normally the Topics Master will go ahead and call for reports. So I am going to go over to Beth for a timers report. How did our 4 separate speakers do?
Thomas, they all qualified. Tracy at 2:15, Jim at 1:48, Kate at 1:57, and we were having technical difficulties here, but I believe Carol was about 2:25 or 26, something like that. Thank you. Hopefully that appraisal worked.
Thank you. I see him already unmuted himself. Len, please give us a report on the use of the word of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'm pleased to report that all of our contestants also used the word of the day, appraised, 1 or more times. I heard it from Tracy, Jim, Kate, and Carol. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. As Larry gets the, oh, there it is. Wow. Okay, we didn't even have to wait. Okay, so please vote. I want to say that, Moklis, I like the fact that you went through. We heard from an appraiser, someone who was appraised, and we got to do 2 separate people on the operation of appraisal and feedback. So I think that definitely worked well, the Toastmasters team. But why do we give speeches? Well, we give speeches very simply, communicate. If you do any type of evaluations at work, one of the things they do is an annual survey. And what's always number 1 at the top of almost every list? Communication. So working on the technical is not a problem, but the content sometimes is lacking. But you need to always make sure that you do it technically correct, that you do it clearly, and you do it timely. So normally there's an option of the evaluator introducing the speakers or the Toastmaster doing so. And I preferred that the evaluator be the one, but I am prepared, if you are not, to introduce each speaker. So I'll ask Jill first. Are you willing and ready to introduce speaker number 1? Jennifer Zapp.
Yes, I am ready and willing to introduce speaker number 1. David Jones will be our first speaker, and he has been working on the engaging humor pathway. He's on level 2 of this pathway. And now this is an interesting topic for a humorous pass. We'll see where he goes with it. He's working on the mentoring project. So the purpose of his project is to clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring and share his experiences as a protege. David is our only COVID joiner to our AM Lockport Toastmasters Club. So he is our newest member, and it's exciting to get to hear a speech from him today. His title is Mentor or Coach, and his time, Madam Timer, is 5 to 7 minutes. David.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My main club is Queen City Toastmasters in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were chartered in 1954, which makes us the oldest club in Charlotte, and I believe we're the 5th oldest club in the state of North Carolina. Now, like many clubs and organizations, throughout the years, we've had our ups and downs. We've had our successes and we've had our challenges. In fact, it's been since 2016 that we haven't won a speech contest, and that's just at the club level. But last year was a real challenge for us during the pandemic. We had a reduction in members, we had a lack of participation from people, and it was kind of depressing at times because we would have meetings for weeks on end where we'd have 0 speakers. We would also have a time where we get 1 speaker, but we couldn't fill the roles. You know, board members would have to do 2 or 3 roles to keep the meetings going. And it was, like I said, a very depressing time to be in Toastmasters when you should be really excited about it. So we did an appraisal of what was going on. We reached out to some of the former members and members who weren't engaged. And their excuses were they had Zoom fatigue. You know, they had so many Zoom meetings during the week that they didn't want to do one more. Some people were concerned about the economy. You know, they didn't want to renew for the $75 because they weren't sure if they were going to have a paycheck the next week. And other people said they didn't have the time, which was confusing to me because we were all sitting at home at the time. In fact, we had one member, he was actually a board member, and he was a stay-at-home dad, took care of the kids, the wife worked, and Tuesday night, which is when we have our meetings, is when he got to go out. That was his one night to go out from the kids, and he was so excited to come to the meetings. And it was like, yay, adults. You know, he would come early and he'd stay late. That was his thing. And he was a great speaker. But once the pandemic kicked in, he started not showing up for meetings. He started making excuses. And eventually he resigned from the board and just didn't show up. And I was kind of sad about it because he was a great speaker. He was a fun guy. And I was a little mad because one of my personality traits, which is a negative, is I'm not real big on excuses. In fact, one of our former members is really the only person I gave a pass to for excuses for not coming to meetings. It was our past president, Elise Levy. She's a veterinarian. At the time she was president, and about an hour before our meeting, she texted saying, I'm not gonna make it tonight. I had a situation with a cow and I need to go home and take a shower. I gave her a pass on that one. Sounded legit, veterinarian cow shower, probably shouldn't show up for the meeting. But as a club, as we did our appraisal, we said the reason we were struggling was because of the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic was creating all these problems for us. 2020 was a bad year. 2021 was going to be a better year. And then for the first time, I logged in to AM Lockport for my first meeting. And it was like, wow, it was like walking into a concert. There were so many people. There were so many performers. You had the speakers lined up. You had all the roles filled. You had extra roles because you had such participation from the membership. And I realized then that the problem was not the pandemic. The problem was our mindset. It was our attitude towards the club. Now in January, I became president of Queen City Toastmaster. And at the end of December, we had 20 members. And with our new board, I made a goal of 30 members by the end of 2021. And I changed my mindset. I started practicing on contacting previous members and engaging people, tried different things on social media. And as of the end of February, we're up to 28 members already. Our meetings have really made a change. We have 2 to 3 guests every week, and every week we might have 2, but usually 3 speakers. All of our roles are filled. And the club is going really well now. But the one thing I really wanted to reinstitute was our mentoring program. Now, we do have a mentoring program, I know, because 2 years ago I signed up for a mentor, and I'm sure they're going to contact me any day now to help me out. But obviously our mentoring program is flawed. And I've been working with our area director in order to reinstitute it, because I think a mentoring program is really important for a club, especially a club like ours where we have a lot of turnover, a lot of younger members, a lot of international members. You know, I look at AM Lockport where most of your people have longevity. We don't have that at our club. And when I look at mentoring programs, mentoring is for the long term. It's to help somebody with their long-term goals and assist them along their speaking path. Where coaching is more short-term, where you're going to help them with the next speech or with the next contest. And what we're looking for is a mentoring program where we can help people along their journey and hold their hand and let them know that they're safe, that they have a partner in their speaking roles. And I want to get to where AM Lockport is, where it is longevity. And that's what mentoring program does. It helps the individual learn the process and be safe in a safe environment. It's good for the mentee, and it's also good for the mentor. The mentor gets to practice their leadership skills. The mentor gets to get a refresher course on public speaking, because as you teach, you learn, and you're refreshing yourself with the basics of public speaking as they go. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a lot of turnover, a lot of new members, and the mentoring will definitely help those individuals, but we have some great speakers right now. We have a bunch of international speakers that English is not their first language. We have 2 people from Iran. We have 1 person from Turkey. We have 2 people from Dominican Republic, 1 from Colombia, 2 from India, and 1 from Nigeria. We have quite the club, and they're all great speakers. But if we had a mentoring program, I believe it would help them along that journey that much better. And now that the club's going great, that is my #1 goal for 2021, is to reintroduce our mentoring program. And I'm not sure if AM Lockport has it, but I have a feeling you do, just based on the way your club operates. But for us, that is our #1 goal. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you. I'm thinking that maybe our evaluators were scrambling but I'm still going to give the option. I can do the introduction, or you can. Before I go into that, though, I wanted to make a quick reference that we like to, in AM Lockport, give the speakers feedback. So as I talk for a minute, go ahead and type, and don't listen to me. Go ahead and type a message. But I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the speeches I gave on the Socrates discussion on how to convey and can do a convincing speech. They had 3 separate elements: ethos, logos, and pathos. And you can look up more on that. It's basically showing that you're the subject matter expert. Reach out and emotionally touch your audience, the reptile part of their brain, and get them emotionally involved. And then present your logical argument. And then wrap up again, explaining why it's so important, and touch the emotion again. All right, I'm going to hit send to my feedback.
You're muted.
I was on the other side of the screen. Okay. Tom Moran, our beloved, humorous friend, are you going to do the introduction for speech too, or would you like me to do so?
I can give the objectives of the speech this morning as the evaluator. Did you say beloved, Tom Moran? Is that part of my introduction? That's amazing. That's a nice appraisal of my position. Thank you. Nancy this morning's doing a speech. It's called Focus on the Positive. That's not the title, but that's the title of the project description. And the purpose of the project is to practice being aware of your thoughts and your feelings, as well as the impact of your response on others. So I'm quite interested in hearing this speech, and I'll turn it back to the Toastmaster today, Thomas, because apparently you have her title.
Excuse me, Nancy, I need to know, you have 2 to 3 minutes / 5 to 7 minutes. How long is your speech?
5 to 7.
5 to 7, okay. Thank you.
Okay, technically clarified. Now, who's going to be speaking is, as we said, Nancy Ferry. And the title of her speech is "A Float or Two Will Do." Nancy Ferry.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our familiar guest, Jim. Relaxation. How do I stay calm and positive when we are moving into the second year of this pandemic, living in a world of total unrest? It's really not easy, but it does take practice. I heard a phrase just this week: promote what you love instead of bashing what you hate. I have been practicing many techniques for my own health so that I can allow space for strength and calmness and hope amidst the cacophony of chatter and news going on in my head. Right now I have a diffuser going. I'm trying to think what smell it is. I believe it's vanilla. That helps to calm me. It helps keep me centered. It helps me to have a stimulus around me that changes sometimes my mind from spinning. I have my rain stick, which I will share with you. Sometimes just listening to my rain stick is calming. I don't know about any of you, but in the summer, being in a tent or a cabin or even the house, I live in an apartment, so I don't hear it so much, but hearing the rain on the windows, that's a very calming thing for me. I've also done some paint by numbers. I know it doesn't sound very artistic, but it feels good. Some adult coloring in books. I'm not an artist, but I have that need to fulfill that art in me. So I use what other people have done and create my own calmness with that. The same with music. I am not a musician, but I certainly enjoy loving listening to music, particularly when I'm driving. I prefer classical music when I'm driving or when I'm stressed, because I'm not listening to words that have meanings for different reasons. And it's just the music is neutral. I do a little jewelry making, and I found myself doing a lot of that. I meditate. I do writing. Once a month, I get a massage. Connecting with friends, either on the phone or Zoom. I try to do that at least once a week, find a friend to just sit and talk with for however long it takes. Walking, exercising. But my newest, most exciting venture, I guess, is floating. It's this amazing gravity-free sensation. I don't know if any of you have seen them, but there's these floating spas popping up all over the place. When you go in, they give you a little video to explain how long, what to expect. And in the video, they suggest that you count to 300 to release all of the thoughts in your mind. Well, that doesn't work for me because counting happens to be one of my obsessive compulsive things that I do when I am anxious. So I stay away from counting, but I do have many ways of just releasing the thoughts in my mind. So it is this bath or pool that is saturated with magnesium Epsom salts. It's healing because the body is absorbing the magnesium as it's taking the toxins out of our system. It relaxes the mind. the muscles. It builds spirit. And for me, I can only give to the world when I've taken care of myself. A dear friend of mine says, practice extreme self-care and radical self-love. That's what I try to do. The value of relaxation cannot be appraised in any monetary value. But come float with me. A float or two will do. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So once again, you can listen or you can be typing at the same time. Other than convincing argument, there's poetry and artistic writing. Well, that's communicating something. That's important. Its content is important and it's super analyzed, every word, so that you can get and give a feeling and experience through poetry and even through song lyrics with the emphasis on maybe the tone of the music, the beat, how loud or soft it is. There's a way to communicate that way too. So when we talk about content, your content can be artistic, not just for logical communication. I'm going to go ahead and hit my send to for my second one. There we go. Our third evaluator today for our third speaker is Gerald Stevens. Gerald Stevens, would you like to do it or shall I?
I shall do it. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'm excited for this opportunity to praise Marty Johnston. He is speaking from the Dynamic Leadership Project, Pathways Project. I'm going to do number 5, research and presenting. Madam Timer, his time is 5 to 7 minutes. His title is Genetically Bioengineered Modified Foods and Our Health. As a chiropractor, I do sometimes sit in on some of these lectures, so I'm curious to see what Marty can teach me and teach us all today. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. With that, we're going to be hearing from Marty Johnson. Speech title, Bioengineered Modified Foods. Ooh, please, Marty, go right ahead.
Genetically modified foods or products in your health. Did you know that there's an onion that was genetically modified that won't make you cry when you slice it? Yes, it's true. In an article written in July 21st, 2015 by Dr. Borit Bohane entitled 10 Successful Examples of Genetically Modified Products, he wrote about a New Zealand research team led by Colin Eddy in 2008. What they did, they inserted a gene into this, must have been a seed of an onion at the time, and they modified it, genetically modified it, and it would reduce the tears that would naturally form when you slice an onion. So that's a positive thing that you can take away from genetically modified products. And when I think of modify, as you may think of change. And as a natural instinct, I think we're all resistant to change. Mr. Toastmaster, thank you. Madam Toastmaster, welcome guests. This morning, I'm going to explain briefly what I've learned in my research are 4 main things that I think that you should know, what I learned from my research. And those 4 things are, number 1, what genetically modified or bioengineered means. Number 2, the ingredients that you can commonly find in these items. Number 3, are these items safe? Are genetically modified items safe for you? And 4th and last but not least, you have a choice. You have a choice to make whether you decide to purchase them or not. Starting with what genetically modified means, I briefly touched on it when I talked about the onion, but genetically modified means that in a laboratory setting, an item was a food product or a seed, a plant was changed for a reason. And a lot of times it might be to prevent an item that is grown, a crop that's grown in a field from insects, bugs that may kill the product. Some items are modified so they're drought resistant. But that's what genetically modified means, that the item was changed on purpose in a laboratory setting. And secondly, some of the common ingredients you can find in genetically modified items are soy, cottonseed or sugar beet juice, canola oil. These can all be found in common genetically modified items. And I learned that by looking up some items where I work at Tops Markets. General Mills makes Hamburger Helper, all kinds of different cereals. And there's a website that I looked up. It's called askgeneralmills.com. And I found that those are the items, the most common items that are changed. And if I didn't mention corn, I meant to mention corn. Corn is one of the main items that is genetically modified. The third thing I feel you should know is about safety regarding genetically modified items. According to the World Health Organization and the United States Food and Drug Administration, items that are genetically modified have to be labeled, whether it's on a scannable code, a twist tie, a label on the side of the box. It has to be labeled that it was genetically modified. And I'm just going to, at this point, I'm just going to share my screen briefly so you can see some common items that you might not really realize that are genetically modified. And the second slide I'm going to show you is a Snickers bar. Who would ever think that a Snickers bar would be genetically modified? Hamburger Helper. Campbell's spaghetti and meatballs. Who would have ever thought that Campbell's spaghetti and meatballs would be genetically modified? Well, it is. And I was eating the SpaghettiOs one day at work, and I got halfway through the bowl of SpaghettiOs, and I was reading the ingredients, and I'm thinking to myself, should I really be eating this? I'm here today, live and well, to tell you that I survived. And these are just a couple other slides that I already talked about. What it means, the ingredients, common ingredients, are they safe? And your choice. You definitely have a choice when you're shopping, reading labels, as far as on a can of SpaghettiOs or a box of cereal, a Snickers bar. For me, I made the choice to read labels, and I don't necessarily shy away from genetically modified items. I do like the eggs that I get from my son's backyard, because I know and I can control what I feed them. Granted, the feed may be modified, but everything else, the exercise they get, the grass, the greens that I feed them, I feel very comfortable and confident that I'm eating healthy when I eat the eggs. I spoke to a customer, Mary Consumer, the other day at the store, which if you want to call it an in-person interview. And Mary Consumer, when I asked her if she was concerned about genetically modified products, she said, not really. She said, we're all going to go from something anyway. And that's what she simply said. We're simply going to go from something anyway, whether it be disease, some sickness, whether or not it's related to something that may be genetically modified or not. Fellow Toastmasters, I leave you with this. You have a choice. Now that you know a little bit more about what genetically modified means, the ingredients, that they are safe, and that you have a choice to make. The choice is yours. For me, I'm going to stick mainly with my eggs, and I'll never pass up a Snickers bar. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marty. I feel a little safer eating a Snickers bar. I like the commercials where someone's like an old mad person and they eat the Snickers bar and they turn back into themselves. Those are always great. Going to go ahead and hit send to my stuff for Marty. Evaluations are going to follow. Normally at the end of the meeting, we ask our guests how they thought the meeting went, like Jim. I would like to give Jim a minute now, since we are I think I'm going to rush the end of the meeting a little bit because we're about 4 minutes behind already, and it may get worse. So, Jim, if you could you give us an evaluation of how you like the meeting so far?
Thank you. This was my, I think, second time I've been on a Zoom meeting with Toastmasters. I thought it went very well. I do like the format on Zoom meeting. And I hope to be rejoining you now that everything's calmed down again. At this time, I'd just like to say to everybody in Toastmasters, thank you for all your cards, phone calls, and well wishes after Marilyn's passing. It meant an awful lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. My condolences. The technical, calling for reports right now. I will go and stay the same order and go first to our timer. Beth, how did our three speakers do?
Our speakers all came in under time. David at 6:52, Nancy at 5:16. Marty went a little over, but within the buffer, 7:23. Good job, guys.
Thank you, Beth. And for how are we doing? Oh, there we are. There's the clickety click click. Excellent. I should probably just skip those. It's very distracting, probably. I'll hear about that during my evaluation. Evaluations. Each speaker is evaluated on the technical execution for their speech and whether they met their goals. Our first evaluator is sorry, that is not COVID. That was just like a cat hair or something. It's Jennifer Zappa. And Jennifer, go ahead and I turn it over to you for your first evaluation.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm going to be evaluating David today. David gave us a speech about his experiences as a mentor. That's sort of the topic, and he somewhat stuck to that. David had some really great skills today. He set up his background. I felt like Thomas should actually maybe use his background as Toastmaster today to be on the talk show of the night. It was perfect for talk show style. And he has himself set up really well in his frame, poised very well, and he made a lot of eye contact using his camera. At least it appeared that way to me. So I thought all of those things he did quite well. A couple of things that I had noted is suggestions. Now your frame, you actually have a pretty good frame, but your hands are just below it. So we could kind of see your hand gestures, but they were cut off a little bit. So I would suggest either moving your hands up when you're gesturing or stepping back a little bit in your frame and just being aware of where your gestures are in the frame because we are on camera. One other suggestion that I had was that you do tend to string sentences together with and. I noticed that at a few different points throughout your speech today. You gave us a really good story though. You started out with your experiences in your club. And of course, as Toastmasters, we can always relate to being pulled into the story, and we're a character in this story too, and in your journey. So I think you engaged us very well from that standpoint. And you even did bring in humor, which I was pleasantly surprised. It's a difficult topic to bring humor into. And I think your path, engaging humor, it's important to note that that doesn't mean you have to be a jokester and tell jokes all the time, but engaging these little bits of humor help bring the audience in. So I thought all of those things worked really well. Another suggestion that I have for you is this speech is really about you being a protege, or your experience as a mentor, or as a mentee, I mean. And I think that those experiences were there, but you didn't explicitly tie that into the speech. So in some sense, you were using AM Lockport as your mentor, like the entire club, not a specific person, but you're learning from what you're observing in others. And I think if you had called that out, it would tie more into this topic specifically. You did get there in a lot of ways, but using that explicitly to address it, I think would also help you tighten up where you went at the end. So for example, you had mentioned to us that you learned how to engage your club more, but you also told us about how your club is great at bringing in new members, which is something our club struggles at. And that's something I think you could teach us as the mentee. And you talked about these aspects and elements of that, but tying that into those experiences and addressing it from that point of view, I think would help strengthen this speech and engage more with this specific topic. Thank you, David. I am cut off.
Yeah, gotta stop in time. That's perfect. Our second evaluator, I called him beloved before, but I'd also like to add humorous and beloved, Tom Moran. Tom Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I hope everyone is doing well. It's been my pleasure this morning actually to evaluate Nancy's speech. As a little addendum to this speech and to Nancy, I met Nancy once at Target outside of the club meeting. Not intentionally, I was just there. I was sitting at the Starbucks having a cup of coffee, and I saw Nancy, and Nancy came over, sat down, joined me, and we had a nice little chat, and it was fun. And that is who Nancy is. Nancy's very approachable, and you can tell that, first of all, by her speech. She started out this morning. Now I'm going to do this sandwich thing that everybody was talking about today, and I'm going to start with the bread. Now the bread is what you would put on a very exceptional sandwich. It's probably toasted if you might. So Nancy started out so that we got an idea of where she was going. She started out, took a big breath, a deep inhale. Her speech this morning had to do with a self-evaluation, and she had to talk about herself. So sometimes that's very hard to do, but for Nancy, I don't think it was that difficult. Nancy not only talked about herself, but she let us in, and we actually felt some of what Nancy experiences. I thought her speech was very calming, for one thing. It wasn't intense. I wasn't looking for anything special. I got very relaxed listening to her, and I am sure that most Toastmasters who watched this morning had that same experience. I'm kind of familiar with self-evaluation, as I'm sure everyone else is. We do it all the time. We do this appraisal of our own skills and where we are at a certain time. And Nancy brought us into that today. She did an excellent job. She had some props that she showed us. Well, we couldn't see the candle. I could smell the vanilla waffling through the air a little bit, and it was very pleasant. The rain stick, I love the rain stick. And she talked to us about how she approaches her day, and she does some very calming things. She writes, she colors, she talks with friends, she does things that produce this sort of calming effect that she gave us this morning. Now, for meat in her sandwich, I don't know if there is going to be that much meat. It's going to be kind of thin on the sandwich. Maybe, I used to have like a mustard sandwich every once in a while, and there was no meat in it at all, but it was quite good. So I would maybe recommend a couple of things. I don't know if I like the headset too much. It might distract from that calming look that you want to project. And also, I know you made time, but I would like to see you extend that a bit, go into some detail about extreme self-care and mindfulness, continue that a bit, because it was quite enjoyable. Now I'm looking for the timer, right? Oh, Beth's got like a lot of red behind her for some reason. I think that something's going on there with her screen. So I'm going to wind it up now, and I think that would be with the end of the sandwich, and that again is that primo bread toasted that I so enjoyed your speech. Thank you, Nance.
Thank you, Tom. He turned red. All right. Our third evaluator, great storyteller, Dr. Gerald Stevens. Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest, Jim. Marty did a great job today. What he did deliver was a great opening and a great speech overall. Educational type of speech, a little different, not necessarily. We're used to hearing humorous, entertaining, adventurous kind of things, and it's good to get educated once in a while. I feel like I learn things at Toastmasters sometimes, and I hope you guys learned something today. In his opening, he told us what he wanted to talk about. He kind of gave us a list of steps. I love that, so I know what he's going to deliver for the future. Keeps my attention. And then he delivered. That's important as well. He started off at the basic level, explaining what genetically modified is. People might not know that. So you got to lead people along a little bit. It's important to start at the beginning and be organized. Marty was organized today. Not surprised, he is a DTM after all. So he did a great job there. He spoke of an item of interest. People might be interested in food. I know I am. I hope you all are. Food is key for me. And what about the food we're eating? Is it going to kill us? Is it bad, genetically modified food? I don't know. But Marty told us. But as an evaluator, I do have to deliver a bit of improvement for him today. No whitewashes at AM Lockport. And these are all stylistic, Marty, just so you know. Just my opinion, just minor improvements, really. The screen share you did went smoothly. I just thought maybe the PowerPoint could have had a little more pizzazz, we'll say. Just a stylistic point. A few more gestures, a little bit more vocal variety, but this is a research speech. You don't need a lot of it. You don't need to go over the top. You're not telling a tall tale. It's all good. Conclusion was a bit short. Summary points for me are helpful. This is what I talked about, boom, boom, boom. I know when I see a research article, if they do that, I love that. In case I just completely missed a point or two, and it's right there. Okay, boom, boom. Oh, yeah, I got that. He did provide us references today as a positive. Ask General Mills, love that as well. If it was a full-out PowerPoint, you could share that with the group, could offer that. Sometimes at the end of the PowerPoint, you could have references. Address safety. That's the number one thing I hear from patients about genetically modified food. Is it going to turn me into some freakazoid? Am I going to get a disease from this genetically modified food? So he addressed that. And as a DTM, he delivered as we expected in regards to eye contact, few to little pauses, nods, professional dress, had a few props. And who the heck knew that Snickers was genetically modified? I didn't. Hopefully it won't turn us into a famous person we don't like. Who knew? And that is my evaluation today, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to Beth as soon as she does no longer evil red. There you go. Beth, can we go ahead and get a timer's report? You're still muted. There you go.
Thank you very much. Jen, I don't know what the actual buffer is, but she came in on mine about 3:16. If the buffer's 15 seconds, I would give it to her because I could be a little bit off in my actual timing.
Buffer is 30 seconds.
Oh, then she's fine. Tom, unfortunately, was 4:03, so he was over. Gerald was perfect at 3:07.
You could give that to me, Beth. I mean, that's it.
But otherwise, we did very well. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you for all the wonderful work today, Beth. The screens changed time, a color. You were able to you didn't lose time on any of them. A little bit off, yeah, a little bit slow on maybe clicking or something. That's fine. We're going to have those little tiny things, and we just do what we need to do, and no one's perfect. Okay. Learned that a long time ago. There was only one perfect person, and they killed him for it. So don't worry about being perfect. It doesn't end well for you. So content was today's theme, and we want to connect with our audiences. Communication has function and purpose, and it can be a very logical, constructed argument, or it can be poetic and artistic. That's kind of where I was going with the idea of content. I know Toastmasters doesn't focus on it. That doesn't mean that it's not important, but the Toastmasters are so many different audiences and so many different topics and so many different lives that we're living. I don't see how you could come up with the solution to the problem of how to evaluate content. It's just something that's very difficult to do. I think that's just a personal opinion, and that's not fair to anyone to judge off a personal opinion. But to go into what actually happened today, we're going to be going to our role holders. And first, we're not going to do the word master. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to, during their assessments, to use the word assess maybe one more time. And that would be, the first person is the Ah Master. I'm turning it over to Anne Marie. Anne Marie, how did we do with Ahs today?
Yes, good morning, everybody, once again. We did very well, actually, but before I give my report, I just wanted to make one comment about evaluation, and that is when I did my first icebreaker, everybody stood and applauded, and it was like getting a whole bunch of hugs. It was wonderful. And that right from the beginning sold me on Toastmasters. My first degree was in fine arts, and when they did evaluation, they were called critiques, and they were really cutthroat, where you put your painting or your drawing up and everybody ripped you apart. So Toastmasters is so refreshing in comparison to that. I think Tom Moran was right last week when he said that maybe the Ah Master is becoming obsolete, because I really didn't hear much. I heard a couple from you, Tom, and a couple from David. And then I heard a bunch of kinds of things, you guys, but that of course isn't in my domain as Ah Master. That would be in the grammarian, but otherwise we did very well. So maybe the role indeed is becoming obsolete. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Anne. Well, I unofficially heard last Thursday night that I'm probably going to be the club president next year. I don't know if there'll be a coup and someone will stop that from happening, but the new board will definitely discuss that, and the current board can discuss that. Maybe the Ah Master has become obsolete. Maybe we can combine Ah Master with grammarian. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Anne. Going from Ah Master to grammarian, I can't wait to hear this report. Samir, please let us know how our use of English language today was.
The use of the language was good overall, although I am glad I'm not the master because my job would have been much harder. Yeah, because that happened a lot. But Thomas had some good phrases: context, 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 clickety, click, click, click. Fun little onomatopoeia type sounds that stuck in my brain. I don't know about anyone else's. Table topics had good energy. Some people were doing some verb substitution. I noticed an errant be when they were trying to use a different verb. But overall, the grammar was pretty solid. Our first speaker, David Jones, he had longevity, mentee, and I like the phrase safe in a safe environment. His grammar was pretty much spot on. I think of the three, pretty much all of the speakers and evaluators were excellent in their use of the English language. But I think of the three, David might have been best. But our second speaker, Nancy, promote what you love, a cacophony of chatter and news. That was a good phrase. One issue was she said, I do writing. I think to say I write would be both more economical and more appropriate grammatically. And then our third speaker, Marty, you said, I'll leave you with this, but then what followed was more of a general conclusion. So maybe that's a use of the phrase, I'll leave you with this, that could have been in a different part of your speech. And then our evaluators, I didn't notice anything. Everyone was pretty much one of our pros in this club, generally very good at evaluations. I did notice some kindas during the evaluation section, but besides that, everyone did really well. I think it was pretty easy to appraise the grammar today.
Thank you. Thank you, Samir. I want to do the clown hands. Larry is our gesture master today. We haven't made up our 4 minutes, so I'm going to do some little things here. Go ahead, Larry, with your gesture master review.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today I have the Tech and Gesture Master report, and I'm going to go through it very quickly because I know we're short on time. We had 7 members that used virtual backgrounds today. 4 of our members wore their AM Lockport t-shirts. We have a smile ribbon we're giving out for somebody who smiled during the entire meeting or 90% of the meeting, and that was Jen Zapla. We had one member that wore a hat. Now, one of the things that we did have is we had 10 people that were toasting and drinking, but we did not have a toast. We had flowers in 5 different backgrounds. I think Jen was an encouraging person that made everyone now put flowers in their background. We had 15 of our members that wore glasses today. The camera, remember the camera is your audience. Speak to the camera. We have 5 of our members that have photos in their backgrounds. 2 have clocks. 3 of our members wore headphones. 1 wore an earpiece. And one of the things about wearing headphones is that you hear everything that somebody is saying. You don't have any of that ambient noise around you. That's something that might be good. We had 4 members, 3 members that left the screen. They just got up and walked away. When you're going to do that, stop your video. That way you're not distracting to any of our speakers. One of the other things that we have to do also is that myself or Len, if we're helping our timer out, coordinate so you don't mess up the timers, because sometimes when one person's yellow and the other one's green and then someone else is red, it may confuse the timer or the speaker. Other thing, clapping, this. We only had 3 or 4 people maximum during the entire meeting that would give kudos to the people that were speaking. The one who did the best job on that was Marty. When he finished his speech, he automatically did this and he encouraged, and it had 11 people actually clapped with him. Way to go, Marty, with that. One last thing, David Jones, you win the award for using the camera as your audience today. Great job with that. One last thing that I have to say is, where is it at? Samir got lost in his screen with the background, and you did sound a little choppy. Make sure everyone, you can test your microphones before the meeting. Make sure you try and do that. The other thing is we had a couple of our speakers that were standing. Congratulations to MUHKLES. You were standing doing table topics. The only thing that I would recommend is make sure you don't go out of the screen when you're talking. That is one thing that you could do well by standing, but make sure you are aware of your space around you. I'm going to end my report because I see we're short on time. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. The order will be the general evaluator, followed by announcements. And then if you need to leave, fine. But then we're going to do the quiz master at the end so that, you know, I don't need to do that, but it's the least important technical part of the meeting. And that is the most enjoyable, where we don't need to record that because it's fun when everyone unmutes and we have a good interaction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the general evaluator for his portion of the meeting.
Well, that would be me. Poor use of pronouns there, Tom. Evaluating the evaluators, I wrote down a few notes while they were speaking. There wasn't really much to say. They all did an excellent job on what their evaluation was. There was no major pros or cons about any of them. The only thing I will point out is the Snickers thing and the genetically modified Snickers, and Dr. Stevens saying his clients will ask, will it make me an evil person? Well, the Snickers advertises that eating a Snickers straightens you out from being the evil type of person. So there's a little bit of controversy there. Okay. To evaluate Tom himself with his meeting. He brought a lot of energy to the meeting event originally and throughout the whole meeting. Obviously, there were some difficulties with communications during the week, but everybody else took over, and it really wasn't as obvious that it hadn't happened, other than the fact we didn't get an email from Tom. We got them from everybody else. His theme was a little bit hard to put a thumb on, but he did have excellent filler material for what was a difficult topic. One thing I would mention is the time management thing. You noticed midway through the meeting that we were running long, and you did not do anything to really speed it up at that point. You could have. And that is my evaluation. Thank you.
Okay. I know that we have an open house and a couple other announcements. Our president normally has some announcements as well. He just waved me off. No? Yes? Go ahead.
We got a word master?
Yeah, let's do a word master report real quick, and then we'll announce the winners and adjourn the meeting because of time. So who's our word master? Lenny?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I heard Tom Moran use the word today, and also David Jones. And I think I heard Beth use it as well. I probably missed at least half a dozen more. If you used it, fantastic. If you didn't, appraise your use of the word of the day and try and work the word appraise in to your conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenny. And we'll go to Quizmaster Phil.
You ready? Okay, seeing as I'm last and there's still people here, I'll use all 10 questions. First, another word for evaluate is?
Appraise.
There, take yourself off mute. Why don't cannibals eat clowns?
Tastes funny.
There you go. What is my theme next week?
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day will be next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day.
No, that's in 2 weeks.
Is not the 17th.
Eric, you don't get it.
The theme is next Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day. Come on, guys.
Oh, sorry. I forgot I'm Celtic now. I forgot.
MUHKLES, said the best evaluation includes
The sandwich.
sandwich approach. Correct. This is a trick question. Where and when will the West End Hoolie be?
The West End, March 20th in Lockport.
Grassy Park.
Yeah, nothing says
Yeah,
St.
all the
Patrick's Day
bars.
like the Italian neighborhood.
That's why,
St. Patrick's Day in the Italian
that's why they
neighborhood.
married all the Irish. Who was Tracy's first evaluator?
Marilyn.
David.
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 Carolyn.
Who was Jim's biggest evaluator?
Marilyn.
Marilyn.
There you go. What visual aid did they use for evaluation approach? What visual aid did Kate use for her evaluation approach?
Oh.
The toy hamburger.
Oh.
All right. What happened to Beth when she put the colors up?
She didn't have a green screen in the back.
Now she sparkled.
She sparkled.
You guys don't listen very
I
well.
like this sparkle.
All right. David's club growth was helped by mentoring. Nancy relaxed with
Floating.
all right. Finally, what does GMO or GMI stand for?
Genetically
Genetically
modified.
modified.
Items.
Get more onions.
All right. You better listen better next time.
Thank you, Phil.
All right.
Oh,
Have fun.
jeez.
And thank you, Thomas, for a wonderful meeting today. Very enthusiastic. I love it. Great job today. All right, let's get to our winner since we are running over on time. Our best table topics winner today is Jim Wilkerson. Our best evaluator today is Jen Zapla. And our best speaker of the day is Nancy Ferry. Congratulations to
Yeah.
Nancy.
Had all the winners.
All right. Kate put in the chat about the open house. There will be a flyer going to be sent out, which I will be doing this weekend. And we'll be updating along the way. Social hour tonight, 7 p.m. We'll hope to see you there. And if there are any other announcements, I will adjourn the meeting today. Thank you all so much for joining. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.